So recently, like everyone else, I watched the last episode of The Last of Us, and got me thinking about, which was great by the way. And I might do a video on that. I got to think about that. But it reminded me of another Naughty Dog property that got the adaptation treatment, and that was Uncharted. You know what it is. So, Uncharted. I remember when this movie came out, and it didn't get a lot of positive reviews. And this wasn't a movie that I was really interested in watching. It was sort of on, and I just, as I was cooking, watched it. And now, having seen it, I understand the criticism about the film, and not having played the games myself. I mean, I've watched the games. I have friends who have the games, who have been over to the places and sort of watched them play through it. And it was, I found it to be an exciting narrative and thrilling gaming experience. The little bits that I did play, I didn't really play a lot, but I did mostly watching. And what I did play was it was quite thrilling, and I could see, obviously, like with The Last of Us or any other property that sort of is so beloved, when it gets the adaptation treatment, there's concern around whether or not it's going to be handled well. And unlike The Last of Us, though, the Uncharted the film does have some issues that, if you're a fan of the game or the games in general, you immediately take note of those things. And but separately, if you look at it as a film, what you have is it's actually well, at least in my opinion, Uncharted feels a lot like this. The movie feels a lot like Tomb Raider, and sort of Indiana Jones and National Treasure, but not as strong. Now, obviously, I think the best of those three properties I named is probably Indiana Jones. That said, National Treasure is fun. Those movies are fun. And Tomb Raider, look, say what you will about that. I actually really enjoyed those movies, both of them. And so, and in a lot of ways, I think what Uncharted has in common with those movies is that it feels like a throwback to those films in that way. For instance, if the film was made 15, 20 years earlier, then I don't know that people would have too much to say about it. I think it would, in the way of like, oh, this is not a good movie. I feel like it would feel right in line with a film that would have been released in the early 2000s, late 90s, something like that. Now, my general read on I think, first of all, it's a fun film. I think it's enjoyable, but ultimately it's not super. I don't think it doesn't feel like it's super memorable. Like, it doesn't have any. That's not to say that it's not without its poignancy, because its sort of impact. Because I think in the ways that it is impactful, it comes through I think really through Tom Holland's performance. Tom Holland he's good in everything he does. It's unfortunate that the material he has to work with here is not. It doesn't meet Tom's talent. It doesn't meet his talent, and that's not to say the script is terrible. It's just that that might have been a better situation for a different actor than Tom Holland. I just saw something recently looking at this movie where, when I watched it, I was thinking, like, Tom Holland's basically doing Spider-Man stuff. This is another excuse for him to be Spider-Man without being Spider-Man. And I thought it was funny because someone else had said the same thing. And I was like, oh, it was funny to come across that. I was like, I thought the exact same thing when I watched this movie. It feels like he was just an edgier Peter Parker that was ridiculously acrobatic for no reason. Now, if you played the games, or you don't think about the games, Nathan Drake is probably about a good 15 years older than Tom Holland, 15, 20 years older than Tom Holland. He's so you're not going to see him doing gymnastic moves and flipping over tables and stuff like that. You're just not going to see it. And I think any excuse to now Tom Holland obviously has that gift. But he's worked for it. He's worked himself. He's trained himself to be able to be acrobatic, and it works fantastically for Spider-Man. In this movie, I don't know that it fits. It just felt like it felt a little bit out of place. It was cool to see him doing flips and stuff, but it was almost like, I don't know if that feels right in this movie. It just feels like anyway. That's again that just means whatever it means. It doesn't mean it's terrible. It's just like, oh, it's something I noticed. Mark Wahlberg is, I actually think Mark Wahlberg is fun in this movie. Again, the material and it actually fits for now. If Mark Wahlberg was Nathan Drake, maybe I think it might have been a little bit better. Tom Holland should not have been Nathan Drake, in my opinion. I don't know who else agrees or disagrees with that, but still feels a little bit too young, I think, for that role. Like I think if you treated it like I keep going back to The Last of Us, because I think Last of Us was so well done with regard to how they approached it, just not just narratively from an adaptation standpoint, from a narrative standpoint, but also from a casting standpoint, how the way they cast different people. And I understand probably the film is probably trying to go in a different direction and sort of talk about what Nathan Drake from a younger, like the birth of Nathan Drake. Okay, I'm cool with that, but I just feel like a lot of people, I wanted an older Nathan Drake, I think, and I think that's probably the fact that we didn't get that is it's not on its own disappointing. I just think all the parts together make it a less strong film than it could have been. Outside of that, it's got fun action sequences, sequences where you frankly have to suspend your disbelief, which is again not terrible, but it's one of those movies that you put on. It's like I was cooking, right? It's not something you could really you're not going to die if you're not paying attention to that movie frame by frame. It's one of those ones you can put on in the background and have something on. Is that to say it's not worth your time? I wouldn't say that. I think, again, if you want to see Tom Holland, if you're a fan of Tom Holland, watch it, because it's just cool to see him doing stuff. It's cool to see Tom Holland doing anything, and regardless of what you think about the film as a whole, it's Tom Holland is always worth watching. So we have that. But other than that, it feels like it's a film essentially that's it's a throwback to an earlier type of film, and it could have been made not in 2022, and probably would have gone over more smoothly with audiences, I think. And this is if it were an original property. I think part of the other level of disappointment around it is because it's based on a solid video game series, and it doesn't have any of the sort of juice that the video game series gives you. In fact, from what I remember, even from just the first game, when watching my friends play it and being completely engrossed in the story of that, I think it does a lot cinematically that this film doesn't do as a film. Like its job, you figure out the medium. The film's job is to be a film, right? Be a solid film. And when you consider the game and how the game did the film's job better, and it had an interactive element that you can sort of participate in that way, that says something about the experience of watching the film. So ultimately, look, the movie is fun. I would say it's fun. It's not terrible. It's fun, and it's not particularly meaningful. Although I will say, what was meaningful to me, the aspect about the film that was meaningful to me was, if you know anything about Tom Holland, he has younger brothers. Myself, I have two younger brothers like Tom Holland. So anything with siblings and stuff like that hits me differently. So uh, Nathan Drake in the movie has an older brother who he idolized, and you know they did everything together. At some point, they have to separate, and you know Nathan is sort of living life sort of with the memory, the ghost of his brother, and so there's something about that, and I think the way Tom Holland sort of plays that is impactful, and to me also reminded me of, if you've seen The Impossible, Tom Holland is fantastic in that movie. He plays a kid who also has brothers, and it's just it hits you. It hit me for sure. So I was affected by that. So anything like that, even though the movie itself is not meant to be, it doesn't take itself too seriously. It does respect the moments that are meant to be serious, and I appreciated that. There's a lot of jokes in the movie, but not at the expense of moments like that. Additionally, where the dynamic is concerned between Tom Holland's Nate and Mark Wahlberg's character, that also is important too. I think the way those two characters interact with each other, from even when they're bantering and also when things get serious between them, the film does not disrespect the truth of those moments, and I appreciate that. I always love when a film can not undercut its moments of truth and seriousness with a joke. I think there's a place for those things. There's a place for jokes and levity and stuff, but the basis of the film wasn't that. Like, it's not meant to be like a super serious film. But with that, the moments that are serious that come up are respected, and that is good. That's a good thing. I appreciate that. So aside from that, it's a fun adventure, and if you're curious about it, if you haven't seen it and you're curious about it, check it out. But if I'd seen it late, obviously, so this is everyone else has probably already seen it. But if you're one of these people who you happen to stumble across this video and you're curious about the movie, I would say, and look, I'm just a fan of movies, so I'm not going to say that movie's terrible, don't watch it. But I'll say, watch it at your discretion, and take all these different comments, things that you may have read, things that you've seen on videos or whatever, with a grain of salt, and make your own decision about whether or not you feel like it's something you should check out. Now, would I watch it again? It wouldn't be my first choice of a movie to rewatch, but if it was on, I might catch myself watching it just because I'm a fan of the dynamics at play in the game. I mean, I'm a fan of the dynamics at play between the characters in this movie, and that actually is what would keep me invested. The other thing I'll say, speaking of characters and stuff, Antonio Banderas is in this movie, and I thought he was solid. It's unfortunate he's underutilized, frankly, in this movie, and I wanted to see more of him, and I think too, I can respect how it played out with him, because he could have, if he was in the movie more, the film might have really felt like a generic something that we've seen before. We've seen this movie before. We have seen Uncharted before. Like, spiritually, it's a movie we've seen before. And I think with regard to Antonio Banderas' character, he's also a character you've seen before. The way he's utilized ultimately is not really what you expect, but which is cool, because that's something that surprises you. But it also, for someone of Banderas' character and his sort of caliber as an actor, you want more of him. I did. I wanted more of him. So I was a little bit disappointed that if he felt so underutilized. Yeah, but anyway, I think that's going to do it for this review. If you've stuck around this long in the video and you've continued to watch, thank you for your time. I appreciate you watching this video. Come on back. I've got more stuff coming up. In the meantime, though, I'm out of here. See ya.